The old car rumbled and sputtered, finally succumbing to the quiet of the night. Its engine, with a final sigh, died in the moonlit darkness, leaving them stranded in a sea of shadows. The silence that followed was heavy, punctuated only by the occasional chirp of crickets. David turned to Sarah, a hopeful smile on his face, trying to mask the uncertainty he felt creeping into his heart. He wanted this night to be perfect, a memory they would cherish forever. They'd finally found Lover's Lane, the infamous secluded spot at the end of Old Mill Road, a place whispered about in hushed tones among their friends. It was supposed to be romantic, a haven away from the prying eyes of the world. The skeletal trees loomed, their branches like gnarled fingers scratching at the inky canvas of the night sky. They seemed to be reaching, grasping, as if trying to pull the moon down from its celestial perch. David switched off the headlights, plunging them into near total darkness. The world outside the car seemed to press in, a tangible presence. For a moment neither spoke, only the dashboard's faint ethereal glow cast dancing shadows on their faces, highlighting the nervousness in their eyes. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Sarah shivered, pulling her cardigan tighter around her shoulders, her eyes darting nervously, scanning the dense trees that lined the road. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a jolt of fear through her. The silence felt watchful, pregnant with unseen things, as if unseen eyes waited patiently for them to slip, to make a wrong move, to break the delicate balance of the night. "It's quiet out here," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her own heart. David forced a laugh, the sound brittle and unconvincing in the oppressive darkness. "That's the point, right? No one to bother us, just you and me." He turned on the radio, hoping to break the tension, but the syrupy love song only amplified the feeling of isolation, making them feel even more alone in the vast, indifferent wilderness. As the minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness, unease crept in, settling like a cold hand on the back of Sarah's neck. The night was full of secrets, ancient and unknowable, and they were intruders, trespassers in a realm that did not welcome their presence. David, captivated by Sarah's story, leaned closer, eager to catch every word. The music, once a comforting backdrop, began to fade into a distant hum. He was completely engrossed, unaware of the subtle shift in the atmosphere around them. Just as David leaned closer, a sound cut through the music. Scrape, scrape. A raw, unsettling sound that scraped against the silence. Sarah froze, her eyes widening in alarm. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the sudden ringing in their ears. David listened, trying to dismiss it as a branch, some harmless piece of nature. But the air was perfectly still, not even a whisper of wind rustling the leaves. The sound came again, louder, a distinct and deliberate violation of the quiet. Scrape, scratch, a desperate, frantic noise, right by Sarah's door, far too close for comfort. He locked the doors, a futile gesture against an unseen threat. Peering into the darkness, trying to pierce the veil of night, but saw only their own frightened reflections, distorted and amplified by the glass. The scratching stopped, as abruptly as it had begun, replaced by a heavy, expectant silence, thick with unspoken fear. They held their breath, waiting for the inevitable return. Was it gone, retreating back into the shadows, or just waiting, patiently biding its time? The world outside felt hostile, alien and menacing, the car a fragile cage offering little protection from the unknown. Every second stretched into an eternity, each tick of the clock amplifying their dread. Dread thickening the air, making it hard to breathe, heavy on their chests. The comfort of the car was gone, replaced by a chilling sense of vulnerability. They were trapped, confined within the metal shell, surrounded by something patient and silent, something that was definitely out there. The night pressed in, a suffocating blanket of darkness, and the threat felt closer than ever, a palpable presence just beyond the glass. "Maybe it was just an animal," David said, trying to reassure himself as much as Sarah. But his voice shook, betraying his inner turmoil and growing dread. Sarah shook her head, her eyes wide with a fear she couldn't mask. "No animal makes a sound like that. It was metal, sharp, like something scraping against metal." David remembered the old story. a local legend whispered around campfires. An escaped patient, they said, with a hook for a hand, a chilling replacement for what he'd lost. Haunting these very roads, preying on unsuspecting travellers. He'd always laughed it off, dismissing it as just a scary tale to frighten gullible kids. But now, stranded in the dark, with that sound still echoing in his ears, it felt terrifyingly real. "We should go," Sarah pleaded, her voice barely a whisper. Panic rising, threatening to overwhelm her. David fumbled for the keys, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum, hands shaking so violently he could barely grip them. The silence outside pressed in, suffocating, broken only by the frantic rhythm of their own breathing. The radio, previously silent, suddenly crackled to life, cutting to a news announcer, reporting that a dangerous patient, considered a high risk to the public, had escaped from the nearby hospital. The legend, the campfire story, was no longer just a story. Fear took hold, a cold, paralyzing grip. They had to get out of there now. The news was a death sentence. This was real, and they were in the middle of it. David twisted the key. The engine sputtered, refusing to start. "Come on!" he hissed, pumping the gas. Finally, the engine roared to life, headlights slicing through the darkness. Without hesitation, David floored it, gravel spraying as they sped away. Sarah sobbed, eyes shut, not daring to look back. The car fishtailed, then shot down the lane, trees blurring past. Only when the town's streetlights appeared did David slow down. The familiar houses felt like salvation. They were safe, or so they thought. David pulled into Sarah's driveway, both of them shaking with relief. The porch light glowed, promising safety. Sarah stepped out, then screamed. David rushed around the car, heart pounding. She pointed at her door, face ashen. There, hanging from the handle, was a rusted metal hook, swinging gently in the night air. A single drop of blood glistened at its tip. The scratching sound, they realized, had been the hook right outside. If the car hadn't started, the hook wouldn't be outside. It would be inside with them. And so the story is told. Beware the lonely places in the dark. You never know who or what is waiting.